Has anything changed? Well, to help us make sense of the consequences of that tragedy is David van Wyk. He joins us in studio. He's the chief researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, which monitors corporate social responsibility. Ms. van Wyk, thanks very much for coming into studio. I mean, as I said in my introduction, any change and any action that has been taken in Marikana have happened not because of, but in spite of government, in spite of the mining company, in spite of police. That's not a good sign.
No, it's not a very good sign. But, you know, the economics of the situation, I think, determines the outcomes. I think that we had a platinum boom until 2009, and then the platinum price collapsed. All the things that should have been done in Marikana should have been done between 2000 and 2009, when the platinum price was really, really high. They raked in 400% profit almost during that time, and they paid out huge, huge dividends, but very little of that went into the community and into the workers. They had a social and labour plan, and part of this social and labour plan was to convert their hostels into accommodation for families. But by the time the massacre happened, very little of that had actually taken place. And when Judge Farlam went there for the first investigation, as the Farlam Commission started, we found like 8-10 people crowded into very tiny small rooms and entire dormitories using one little two-plate stove and so on of workers. So obviously the workers at Marikana before the massacre were not in a very good state. You know, they were not in a very good place because of the overcrowding. We also found that most of the roofs of the hostels were leaking. They were in very bad shape. They were very old. And, you know, we found situations which were really appalling existing in the hostels. And as Lonman converted the hostels into family accommodation now, it's given living out allowances because where a room previously had 8 to 10 people in it, now suddenly it only had one person and his family. And the living out allowance created Nkaneng informal settlement right next to the hostel. So people just moved into zinc shacks right next to the hostels because the nearest township is very far away from there and there was nowhere else to go. And of course the Bapo-Bo Mogale community made money from renting out these shacks. And of course the Bapo-Bo Mogale community, very few of them actually have jobs on the mine itself. In May 2012, the community stopped the mine's operation because it wasn't living up to its social and labour plan, and it was not employing local people. So that was even before the massacre itself. Yeah. You know, so it was a recipe for disaster from the start, and we issued a report on this 2 days before the massacre, in which we warned the government there's going to be bloodshed unless they actually intervene in a responsible manner. And a responsible manner to intervene in a labour situation like this is not to intervene with the police and the army and the big guns. It's actually to send in teams of people to analyse the problem and solve the problem. A day before the massacre, I actually addressed the SADC parliamentary portfolio group on mining in Midrand, in which I raised the issues, and the portfolio committee chairperson of the South African government was also sitting there, and he put up his hand and he said, but David, the situation in Marikana is no different than any other township. Why would it explode? And the next day it exploded, and the next day people were actually
And of course there was that build-up. There was weeks-long, that's where those other 10 people were killed in that build-up.
Well, in actual fact, there were probably 15 people killed, because there were 2 people killed at Impala, and the strike then spread to Aquarius. At Aquarius, on the 4th of August, workers marched. 3 workers got shot there. There's no mention of that particular case and what happened to the security company. And it was these shootings that made the workers arm themselves, because they now expected a violent response from the state instead of an interventionist response from the state. You know, on the day itself, Bishop Josie Okai, our chairperson, was in Marikana when the massacre happened, and he spoke to the workers and he asked them, what is it that you are demanding? They said, please, Bishop, go and tell management we just want to speak to them and tell them we are sitting in the hot sun, can they bring water and some food? He went
Bring in some humanity.
Bring
in some humanity.
Some humanity,
in
other words. And so he went to the Lonman offices, and while he was speaking to them, he got a cell phone call from one of the workers saying to him, Bishop, they are shooting us. So instead of shooting, they could have just sent at that moment a vehicle full of water and a couple of management people to speak to these guys, and the thing could have been avoided. As it is, it was not avoided. You know, in our study that we did on Marikana in the months leading up to the massacre, we found the most appalling conditions. You know, the rivers there now all have bilharzia. The reason why they have bilharzia is because the sewage system in Marikana itself is just non-functional. And all the sewage is spilling into the river, and a lot of these guys come from Central Africa where there's bilharzia, and so bilharzia is now commonplace in the Rustenburg area as a result of very poor management of labor.
Well, David, I wish we had more time, but we have unfortunately run out of time. We've got so much to get through as we commemorate this 7th anniversary of the massacre. But thanks very much for coming into studio. Stay put for just a moment. David van Wyk is Chief Researcher at the Benchmarks Foundation, which keeps a close eye on corporate social responsibility.